Like us today, though, they wanted to do good, and they tried to build institutions that would support them in doing good. They decided that the local congregation, the gathered faithful, was the highest and best reflection of God's love on earth. So they made a pact with one another, a covenant, to show up, to worship together, and to walk through life together, learning the ways of love. 4.5 centuries later, our congregations still are organized that way. We still gather freely in local communities. But our idea of what it means to be faithful and what we are faithful to is very different. Instead of being faithful to a Bible or a single culture's view of what God is, we are faithful to one another, to our search together for truth and meaning, to life itself. We support one another in saying yes to life by listening each other into speech, by helping one another remember the sources of our strength. And we are faithful to a few ideas. Though we don't have a creed, I do believe, that there are a few ideas that are generally shared among us. One of them has come down to us from the 16th century, when one of our Unitarian saints, Francis David, said these words: "We need not think alike to love alike." We are communities that are held together not by our thinking, but by our loving. And isn't that strange, since we are people who are said to lead always with the intellect and not with the heart? Of course, human institutions, like human beings, can be forces for good and for ill. When we gather together in institutions, sometimes program and ambition take over. We get attached to agendas and accomplishments, and we forget what we came here for. It takes walking consciously, not only as individuals, but as a congregation together, to keep on the path toward the good. It also takes occasional disruption of the organization. We need to disorganize sometimes, then reorganize to stay vital to our highest values. This disorganization may come a little easier for us than to most, and this can be a great strength. Because we do not think alike, we challenge one another in our search for truth. We believe that none of us has all the answers, but each of us possesses inherent worth and dignity, and each has a piece of the truth. And so we listen to one another. We are organized not by belief, but by intention, and intention to pay attention to the things of worth. This is the original meaning of the word worship, by the way, worthship, making liturgy and meaning out of that which is most worthy of our attention, that most vital part of our lives. We may struggle with that word worship, as we may struggle with the word religious. Etymologically, the word religare means to bind back. And in our case, the binding is not to an idea of a supreme being, but to the community, to the walking together, to the ultimate connectedness of our disparate souls. Well, that's another word some of us have trouble with, soul. But spiritual, that which so many of our 21st century seekers are willing to claim, this word comes from breath, or ruah in Hebrew. In one early definition, The root of the word spirit is the breath that's blown into a flute to make music. It is, in other words, airy, not attached, not bound. So when people tell me they are spiritual, not religious, I think, at last you're here. You need a home, a flute to turn your breath into music. You need a company of flutes to practice with. You need grounding, and this congregation may well be the place where you will find it. In the Jewish tradition, according to Rabbi Mark Gluckman, writing in the Seattle Times, there are two kinds of prayer. Kiva, which is set, scripted prayer, the kind that is said week after week in community in synagogue, the kind that's said by rote. And kavana, which is intention, the prayer that soars like breath, like spirit, toward union with the all. The way to get to that soaring kind of prayer, Glickman wrote, is through kiva, through prayer that is practiced, prayer that is rote.
Okay.
Because we need both, even if we're a Sunday morning flash mob. We are like a flash mob. We show up, we do something together in a public place, and then we disperse. And sometimes the unexpected enters. I have a friend who believes that Unitarian Universalism is the next great world religion. And you know what? I think she's right. It is exactly the religion for these religionless times of the 21st century. Because people like us have known for nearly 500 years that we need not think alike to love alike. Because we have known for just as long that other great idea of Francis David, that revelation is not sealed. This is the radical promise of these two great ideas. We can support one another in becoming what we are becoming. We can ground one another in love even as we soar. We can lean on one another in a profound interdependence that is both spiritual and religious. Hallelujah.